So today we'll be discussing the critical minerals mining industry, and more specifically, my proposed deep sea critical minerals mining firm. So critical minerals are a massive industry. They power pretty much everything that's going to be important throughout the next 10 to probably 100 years. They're used in batteries, cell phones, clean energy. The military uses them, so they're important for national defense. And with the expanding electric vehicle market, which is kind of blowing up now, they're going to be super, super important. Now, we know that there is critical minerals on the seabed, but we haven't seen yet, at least, a firm go in and actually capitalize on those minerals and mine them. So that could be a very, very lucrative business model going forward. It's difficult because it's very capital intensive. And as of now, we're still finding critical minerals on the surface of the earth. But going forward, I think it's going to be a very, very important business for the global economy. So as I just touched on, critical minerals are extremely important. They make smartphones run, cars, computers, pretty much everything that we use day to day. The global demand is only going to continue to increase. So a firm that can be able to control the critical minerals market is going to be extremely successful throughout the foreseeable future. Now, the two publicly traded firms that control the critical minerals market right now are BHP and Glencore. China, obviously, all their companies are state owned, so nothing publicly traded, but they do control the significant portion of the critical minerals mining industry. But BHP is an Australian based company, Glencore Swiss, but both of them have a vast amount of mines and refineries across the globe. They're the leading producers in cobalt, nickel, copper, zinc, so all of these critical minerals that are extremely important to the global economy. So the market we're in is unique because it's a commodity market. So the prices are set based off of global supply and demand. So we're not going to be able to compete through branding or product differentiation. The only way we'll be able to compete with competitors is through cost efficiency, reliability, and so getting production costs down is going to be a massive part of this business model. So the proposed product, which is really just a business concept, is deep sea mining. Now, deep sea mining can be extremely lucrative because we know that there's minerals concentrated on the seabed. Because they're concentrated there, that can actually reduce the need for drilling and blasting, which are often very capital intensive, and they can actually be dangerous too. They can have negative environmental effects. So if we're able to just go in and mine the sea floor without having to drill or blast, that could cut costs massively. Now, the only thing holding us back is the technology at the moment, and the technology will be a very upfront, high cost. But if we can overcome that hurdle, then it could be, like I say, an extremely lucrative business going forward. So as I just mentioned, the fixed costs are going to be extremely high. The equipment that we're going to need, the technology, deep sea mining vessels, we're going to need to pay scientists too to do research and and find the critical minerals on the seafloor. So the fixed costs are going to be really high. And as I mentioned before, competitiveness in this industry is largely dependent on keeping costs low. And so we're going to have to operate on a very large scale to offput those extremely high fixed costs. The variable costs will include fuel, labor, the equipment maintenance. So as the production grows, those are going to increase, but they're nowhere near what the fixed costs are going to be. So growing quickly is going to be extremely important. Since we can't influence the price of the critical minerals because it's based all on global supply and demand, the marginal revenue is typically equal to the market price. Because of this, the key decision variable becomes controlling marginal costs. Now, Because the fixed costs are so high, we need to produce enough output to exceed the break-even point before we can start seeing any profits. Can't compete on price. So how are we gonna compete? Well, it's keeping the production costs low. Now, the deep sea mining venture presents a good opportunity here because, like we said before, because there's no drilling, it could be quite a bit cheaper as soon as we expand production enough to offset the high fixed costs. So because they're the two major competitors in the industry, we did a little research into Glencore and BHP. Now, Glencore's struggling a little bit at the moment. Their production is lower than they expected. Their costs are higher. They're having to lay off workers. While on the other hand, BHP is very strong operationally. Their use of their capital is very good. So the important lesson here is that to succeed in this industry, operations and reliability and capital investment need to be extremely spot on. Key strategies. Number one, first and foremost, cost efficiency. To compete in the commodity market, costs need to be low. Second, scalable operations. Like I mentioned before, we need to be operating on a pretty large scale to offset those high fixed costs. So, scalable operations are going to be key. In terms of our consumers, they want most of all reliability, and we need to be predictable in our production levels. Because of this, we're going to use conservative production forecasting because we don't want the consumers expecting more than we can actually provide. That would be really bad. A metric we can use to track this is going to be forecast versus actual production variance. We want a low variance here. So that's the metric we'll be using to track our performance. Now, as a firm that focuses strictly on the mining of critical minerals, our main consumer, well, our only consumer really would be refineries because until you refine the minerals, you can't use them for anything. Um, so, if we were able to acquire refineries, we'd be able to vertically integrate, obviously reduce double markup, which would be great for us. However, there are some risks associated with it. Antitrust suits might be filed against us, so that is a risk to consider. Another thing that could be very exciting is the mining of complementary minerals. Things like copper and zinc are used together to create brass, so maybe there's a possibility in there to bundle those because they're used together. So I could do a whole nother hour talking about the geopolitical side of the critical minerals industry with the deep sea mining. Like through the UN, China basically secured like all these contracts to mine the deep sea, and the US just ignored it. But then I think Trump said like, okay, we're just gonna mine the deep sea, and the Navy will protect all of our businesses. So that's kind of why I got into this. But yeah, I mean, critical minerals are absolutely massive, as I've said a million times throughout the presentation. And I mean, going forward, I think without a doubt, just based on the fact that because there's no drilling or blasting, and because there's just the ocean's huge, like there's got to be so many minerals down there. It's gonna be a huge industry going forward. It's just about getting the technology up to speed, and the costs right now I think are just too much for anybody to take a risk on, especially because at the moment like the global economy is doing okay with the mineral reserves that we have on the earth, like on the ground. But going forward, I think it's going to be massive, and I really enjoyed doing this project. I hope that you enjoyed reading the paper and watching this video.